I know it's early in the season, but do you have, obviously, I mean, my first thought is Joseph Martinez. Who's your biggest underperformer so far in MLS this season?
Underperformer. That's a really good question. I'm looking towards like the bottom of the league table for both teams.
It could be an individual player on a team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Christian Benteke might not be a bad shot. I know he jumped in the league last year, but if DC were going to be like good, they need Christian Benteke to like take a pretty big step forward and be a 20 to 25 goal scorer, and I'm pretty certain he could be in this league. I think in the overall, I'm probably looking at Portland. They just seem like a team that, with Evander might be in that running. I know he's injured, but like Evander, for the money that they spent, I was really excited to watch their first game. It was one of the few MLS games that's kind of been separate from the big Saturday night window because I think they were playing on a Monday night due to weather. I was like, Evander, let's go. And that's been one that just hasn't quite come off. And you just sort of imagine with like $9.5 million feels like the kind of transfer fee in MLS where it's like, I'm getting a guaranteed great player, like 10 goals.
Yeah,
10
you better
assists,
be good.
like, right, like he better be amazing. And he just sort of hasn't been. And he is going to go through the same curve that all these new introductions into MLS deal with, which is it takes a second. And like that happens to a lot of new players that come into the league. But you just sort of feel like certain players could be above it. And I thought that he would be. I think just Portland in the overall had that bizarre situation with the goalkeeper who kind of came out and said, if anyone says I'm not healthy, they're lying. And then he starts the next week. Just kind of feels, and then obviously everything that kind of spills over from last year and everything that happened off the field with Portland just feels like a club that like I was a lot more kind of, I don't want to say optimistic, but sort of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I would turn on a Portland game and go, whoa, look at this crowd. Look at this team. It looks like such a cool like vibe to be a part of, and I just feel like they've taken a little bit of a step back from that.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, it might be LA Galaxy and Riqui Puig.
Yeah.
Just because I was so excited for what this beginning of the season would bring. And I thought the same guy we saw for a little bit of last season would show up, and they just haven't. And I really do think they're really a danger of losing out. Overperformer or, overachiever?
I mean, obviously as a team, you start with St. Louis. That's an obvious one. And I think, again, they spend a ton of money. It's not that surprising. But Denny Bouanga, compared to how he started his life in LAFC, again, great in the playoffs last year. It's not a surprise that he's kicked on. But last year he got a bunch of chances, didn't finish any of them, excuse me. And like you just sort of think that it would be a step forward, but LAFC always seem to find prolific goal scoring from somewhere where you just sort of know that by the end of the year, they're going to be on 60, 65, 70 goals at the end of the year. It's like, well, where did that come from? And Denny Bouanga is the reason why. He's an MVP candidate, and it's no surprise. I think Jordan Morris definitely deserves a shot.
That's who I was going to pick.
Yeah.
Jordan Morris is a shock. Dude, what a number 9.
Right. Well, that's an interesting thing now because they brought Raul Ruidiaz off the bench because he was coming back from international duty, but I kind of, if I'm Jordan Morris, remember when he was at Stanford, he was a center forward, and they moved him to be a wide player because that also somewhat suited his skill set. I kind of wonder if all along he was a center forward. You watched not just that he scored 4 goals against Sporting Kansas City, but the manner in which he scored them, the runs, the curving one way, bending the other. He looked like he was at home. He looked like he was natural, an instinctual number 9, and I kind of wonder if he's been a number 9 this whole time, but Seattle have always had good strikers, and so you wanted to find a different role for Jordan Morris, and he's succeeded as a wide player. But I kind of wonder if deep down that instinctual wiring as a center forward is there. I don't know if we're going to get to see it. I wonder if like pressure will be on Raul Ruidiaz at any point where it's like, hey, if you don't start putting goals away, then Jordan Morris is going to take your job. I mean, that would be kind of shocking given Ruidiaz's pedigree, not only in helping them win the Champions League, but just sort of in general. He's a great player. But Jordan Morris, the way that he sort of bends his runs and finishes goals, he had several tap-ins in the 2 games against the Galaxy and against Sporting, and you sort of wonder if that's who he is as a player.
Dude, he might get a shot at playing the number 9 for the men's national team again. Being back. I mean, I think it's far-fetched.
I feel like, we talked earlier about Berhalter being unpopular. Like, Jordan Morris, not exactly the most popular guy with the U.S. fan base.
No, not at all.
And, like, if all of a sudden it's like, hey, guys, here's our idea. We've been hyping up Pepe and Pifuk and
Balogun.
Going for Balogun now and Daryl Dike and all these center forwards. And at the end of all of that, We found the answer. It's Jordan Morris.
Right, yeah.
I don't feel like fans will take too kindly. Although I feel like fans have been way too harsh.
Yeah,
on
they've
Jordan
been super
Morris.
hard. But the only thing worse that they could do is then bring back like Michael Bradley. You know,
Right?
What I mean?
Yeah. No.
Like,
After all this, we've turned to Josie Altidore.
yeah. Please no. Although, hey, I'm a fan, Josie.
I am too, by the way. Like, I think the U.S. the U.S. fan base is sort of like wants us to be Brazil, and I get it, but there's steps to being Brazil. You gotta like walk before you can run in being Brazil, and I understand it, but have like some reasonable level of expectation. Understand these players do offer enormous traits that if you watch them week in, week out for their clubs, you could understand. Like Jordan Morris is not a zero of a player. That's ridiculously harsh. There's people that just like, not good enough.
Yeah,
and
I get
whatever. I understand. I understand that, like, yeah, he is not Cristiano Ronaldo. Gotcha.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that he's useless.
Right. I think ever since he turned down the Werder Bremen thing, it's been really tough for him to win over the American fans ever since then. And we were harsh on him here, on this show, because you're like, come on, somebody wants an American player.
Yeah.
You got to go.
Well, and I mean, at that time, it was sort of like anyone who can go, you have to go because, like, you there's a possibility you're carrying the flag for the entire nation in Europe.
That's exactly what it was.
Right.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
You're an ambassador now. You're a
Yes.
diplomat. Get your ass out there.
But it's a lot to place upon somebody, isn't it?
What?
No?
These are athletes.
But, like, if Jordan Morris, I want to make, $1.5 million playing in my hometown, like, can you really fault him?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I get it. I get it. And I've spoken to him about it, and he was like, hey, my decision was my decision, and it's probably what worked best for him. And you'd hate to see someone stretch themselves to go do something that they don't eventually want, that really wasn't in there. But then, you start to get if it's because, he and again, I'm not saying this, but people were saying it's because he lived a comfortable life, that he doesn't have to go do that, and players in other countries have to go do that. There was just so much that got brought up that he has become the bottleneck of that funnel of all the shit that people thought Americans couldn't do in Europe.
Yeah.
It all got placed on him. And now when you're seeing him, that's why he's my overachiever, is you just see this guy vibing and thriving in this position that we all forgot he could play. And you're like, damn, where we, of course, cardamom doesn't work in Italian food, but we should have been having Indian food this entire time,
Yeah. I mean, like, as a wide player, he's been good. He's been a really good MLS player as a wide player. He's been clearly a national team level, not quite starter, but replacement player, bench player as a wide player. But maybe his potential is where Jurgen Klinsmann started him as a player from Stanford all those years ago as a center forward. I think, if I remember correctly, he played on a terrible laid over turf pitch in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio and might have scored a goal. I forget against who, playing as a center forward for the U.S. So maybe all along he was just playing in the wrong position, and another team besides Werder Bremen would have come in for him.